in the wide, silent sweep of the Montana plains, where the wind carries stories, older than fences and the dusk, settles like a soft blanket across the folded hills. Old rancher Eli Broderick was finishing the kind of day that left a man's bones, humming with fatigue. He had been mending the north fence line since dawn, working alone as always, save for the company of his aging border collie Jasper, whose loyalty was as steady as the morning star. The sun had long disappeared behind the ridge, leaving only the dying glow of orange smudged across the sky as Eli trudged toward his porch, boots heavy with the weariness of work and time. He was not a man accustomed to visitors, especially not at night. His ranch sat nearly 40 miles from the nearest small town, and the road that led to it was more suggestion than certainty. So when he heard the faint crunch of gravel from the driveway, hesitant, like someone who wasn't sure they should be there, he froze in place, hand instinctively drifting toward the old lantern hanging on the post. Jasper's ears pricked up, tail stiff, a low growl humming in his throat. Moments later, Eli spotted the silhouettes. Two small figures huddled under the flickering headlights of a rusted pickup truck that looked like it had rolled straight out of another decade and barely survived the journey. The truck door creaked open, and a girl stepped out, no older than 12, thin as a fence rail, with tangled dark hair that whipped in the wind. Her clothes were dusty, oversized, and worn in ways that spoke of too many nights spent without warmth. Behind her, a younger boy of maybe 8, maybe 9, peeked out timidly, clutching a threadbare backpack to his chest as though it were the only possession he trusted in the world. The girl cleared her throat, and even from the porch, Eli could hear the quiver of fear and hope woven into her voice as she called out, "Sir, can we sleep in your barn tonight?" The question hung in the air, fragile as frost. Eli felt a familiar ache stir in his chest, the ache of old wounds, memories he didn't invite anymore, the kind that settled deep and didn't leave. He raised the lantern higher, its warm circle of light spilling across their faces, revealing exhaustion etched far too deeply for children so young. The girl's eyes were wide but determined, the boy's filled with a quiet desperation that struck Eli like a blow. "Where are your parents?" Eli finally asked, his voice rough from hours of silence. The girl swallowed, her chin rising just a fraction. "It's just us," she said. "We're traveling." "We don't need much, just a place to sleep. We won't bother you, we promise." Something about the way she said, "we don't need much," twisted inside. Eli, because once, years ago, he had meant those same words, spoken with the same stubborn courage, back when his world had been just as uncertain. For a long, heavy moment he said nothing, and the wind pushed through the grass like an impatient whisper, urging him to make a choice. He could send them on their way. Plenty of men might have. But the longer he looked at them, the clearer it became that sending them away might be sending them into danger or cold they wouldn't survive. Eli nodded slowly, but instead of pointing toward the barn as they expected, he stepped back from the doorway and opened his front door wide, the warm light spilling across the porch like a welcome they hadn't dared hope for. "You'll sleep inside tonight," he said. The girl blinked, stunned, as though she hadn't anticipated kindness. "Sir, you don't have to do that. I know what I have to do," he cut in, though his voice softened afterward. "Now come on. It's cold enough to freeze your bones out here." The boy hesitated, glancing nervously at the unfamiliar house. But the girl held out her hand to him, whispering something too soft for Eli to hear. They approached cautious, like wild animals unsure if the offered hand held food or a trap. As they stepped into the modest warmth of the living room, Eli noticed how the girl pulled the boy protectively behind her, placing herself between him and the unknown. It wasn't bravado. It was instinct, the kind of instinct born from hardship. He admired her for it. Jasper, ever the judge of character, approached the children with a curious sniff, tail wagging slowly. The boy's face lit up for the first time, a shy smile appearing as he reached out to pet the dog. Eli busied himself with the kettle, pretending not to watch them too closely. Old habits made him slow to trust. But something about these children, their quiet resilience, their exhausted courage, stirred a part of him he thought had dried up long ago. When he finally brought them mugs of warm cocoa, made, from a dusty tin he hadn't used in years. The girl held hers carefully, almost reverently, as though warmth itself was a luxury she didn't often encounter. "Thank you, sir," she said. "My name's Mara. This is my little brother." "Lucas!" Eli nodded, pulling out a chair. "Name's Eli." Mara exchanged a glance with Lucas before speaking again, voice thin as thread. "We didn't mean to scare you or anything. Our truck, it gave up back on the road. We were trying to get to North Ridge. We heard there are farms hiring there. Lucas can help with animals and I can clean and—" Eli raised a hand gently. "You don't owe me explanations. You two are safe here tonight." That word, safe, made. Mara's lip trembled just slightly, as though she couldn't remember the last time she'd heard someone say it and mean it. The three of them talked for a while, the children offering pieces of their story in hesitant snippets, like puzzle pieces handed over with caution. A deadbeat stepfather, a home that stopped feeling like one, a promise they made to their mother before she passed, to look out for each other no matter what. And so they ran, living in their truck, clinging to the fragile hope of finding honest work in North Ridge. Eli listened, the weight of their story pressing heavily into the quiet corners of the room. He found himself thinking of his own daughter, the one he hadn't spoken to in 7 years, the one who left after the divorce and never looked back. He wondered where she was now, if she was warm, if she was safe. He wondered if he even had the right to wonder anymore. As the night deepened and the wind rattled softly against the windows, Lucas dozed off in the armchair, cocoa still half-finished in his hands. Mara tried to stay awake, as though afraid the kindness might disappear if she blinked too long, but exhaustion eventually claimed her too. Eli watched them sleep. These two strangers who had stumbled into his life like wind-blown seeds, carried by a storm, and felt a shift inside himself, small but undeniable. He fetched quilts from the hall closet, draping them gently over the children, careful not to wake them. Then he sat in his old rocking chair, Jasper curling up at his feet, and stared into the dim glow of the fireplace. The ranch had been silent for too many years, haunted not by ghosts, but by the absence of laughter, of warmth, of purpose. But tonight something felt different. Or maybe he felt different. Maybe opening the door had opened something else, something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in a long time. Whatever tomorrow held, one thing was certain. The moment Mara asked, "Can we sleep in your barn?" was the moment Eli Broderick's life shifted in a direction he hadn't expected. The night he opened not just his door, but his heart. And as the fire crackled gently and the children slept peacefully, for what might have been the first time in weeks, Eli whispered a silent promise to the darkness. A promise that whatever storm had driven them here, he would make sure they didn't have to weather the next one alone. If you want to see where this story goes next, stay tuned for Chapter 2, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the rest of this journey.